To be or not to be, that's the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing end them, to die, to sleep, no more, and by a sleep to say, we end the heartache and the 1,000 natural shocks that flesh is heir to. 'Tis a consummation devoutly to be wished. To die, to sleep, perchance to dream. There's the rub. For in that sleep of death come dream. What dream may come when we have shuffled off this mortal coil must give us pause. Well, Shakespeare helps us take a little look at something called death. Shakespeare's Prince Hamlet, thinking he's all alone, contemplates death and even suicide, lamenting the pain, the torture of living everyday life. Anybody here ever been tortured by everyday life? And the rest of you who are not admitting it, let's talk again tomorrow. We or someone that we love may look at life this way from time to time, wondering if life is worth it or whether or not death is the solution to all of our problems. I sometimes feel that way in the morning when I get up and I try to stretch my fingers and move my bones, and I'm thinking, I've been doing this for 77 years. Doesn't it ever get better? And it does, thankfully. Woody Allen, however, that famous theologian, says right out loud what we may be thinking when he says, I'm not afraid of death. I just don't want to be there when it happens. So is life so terrible that it's not worth living? Is death so scary that it's not worth contemplating? Mark Twain, another great theologian, and actually he was pretty smart. He said the fear of death follows from the fear of life. A person who lives fully is prepared to die at any time. When we take ourselves so seriously and so sadly that we can't even contemplate the possibility of life after life, it might help us to take again another look at this fabulous celebration represented by this altar. Dia de Muertos, or in Anglophonic cultures, where we translate back into Spanish, Dia de los Muertos. As my lovely professor friend corrected me in my Spanish, and I said, I've done research because I'm a white male privileged scholar. I can read books. And it's Dia de Muertos, and we argued back and forth on Facebook. Isn't Facebook so fascinating? And then we got together and had a drink. But anyway, its roots go way back in time to a time of the Aztecs when the celebration was dedicated to the goddess Mictlantecuhtli. I dare you to say that 5 times. She was the queen of Mictlan, which is the place of the dead, along with her husband, whose name I refuse to try to pronounce. Now, when the Roman missionaries came along in their little brown habits, they came along and said, oh, no, you're doing it all wrong. On November 1st, we have the All Saints' Day. And that's the day when we celebrate all the saints that didn't make it into our official calendar. And I thought that was quite generous, and so did the natives. The next day, November 2nd, is All Souls' Day, when everybody gets in the act. And I thought that was really generous of a group that usually gives us the message, if you don't do it my way, it's the highway. Or, live right here, or... And sometimes they even wanted to precipitate that ending. Don't you just love any kind of fundamentalist of any kind? They're so scary. You want to be scared on Halloween, dress up like a fundamentalist. What that looks like, I don't know. But These natives in Central and South Mexico celebrated this wonderful feast. On November 1st, they welcomed Los Angelitos, the little babies who died prematurely and who did not experience life the way we experience it, but who nonetheless are just as alive to their parents and to their family, that on November 1st, these little ones come back to visit. And so they go to the graveyards with these little sugar skulls. They actually learned that process from those same monks who tried to do away with the celebration. And they made these little sugar skulls and brought toys and whatnot and welcomed the little infants. The next day, while the good religious folks were celebrating All Souls Day, they had picnics at the graveyards and they welcomed all their loved ones back. Now, I admit, I am not Mexican. I cannot claim Aztec heritage. I don't know what it feels like to those people who celebrate in the cemeteries and so on and so forth. But I have a little son. When he was born without the ability to really breathe. And less than 24 hours after he was born into this plane of existence, he slipped off into what we call eternity. And there are times when I forget that, and I go on living, and then suddenly, in a quiet moment, I remember him. And he comes back to me. And I wonder, what would he have been like had he been able to grow up with his brother and sister? What would life have been? And what is life for him now? And he's just as real as he was that day in Salem, Oregon, when he was born. And I appreciate those moments. I have another dear friend. A lot of us have a friend that, excuse me, I'm getting a little emotional here, who is very dear to me. I could start a sentence and he could end it. He was my music director at the cathedral. And sometimes we had 3 morning services. Can you imagine doing this 3 times? And then coming back in the evening for those who didn't get up on Sunday morning. And I could give the message twice, and after him hearing it, he would get up and say, "Look, boss, sit and relax a minute." He would get up and give my message, and it sounded just like me. We were connected somehow. When he was 40-some years old, I knelt by his bedside, and I said, "You're really going to leave me with Christmas on my hands?" And he said, "Yes, boss." I don't know why he called me boss. Music directors know better than that. They know they're in charge. But 5 o'clock the next morning, I woke up in the library where I had found a comfortable chair and said goodbye. And the nurse knocked on the door and said, "He's gone." He comes back to me regularly, not just on this occasion, but sometimes in the unaware moments. Does it ever happen to any of you? Or am I alone in this? Some of you know what I'm talking about. Someone you've loved. Someone that you just connected with. A few weeks ago, I said goodbye to another friend who was so helpful to me. And Albert slipped away into eternity, and I remember him today. But if I'm to learn anything from those Aztec early people and the celebration which has floated north into North Mexico, become a national commemorative holiday now in Mexico, and has come into San Antonio, well, it's probably been here a lot longer than you and I have been here, but if I'm going to learn anything, it's this, that life is a continuum. It never ends. The wise yogi Paramahansa Yogananda reminds us, death is only an experience through which you are meant to learn a great lesson. You cannot die. One of my heroes is Dag Hammarskjöld. He was the second Secretary General of the United Nations many years ago, and he wrote a book. I'm going to try to say it in the Danish. Vagtmarken. Does that sound Danish? It really means markings. He said, do not seek death. Death will find you. But seek the road which makes death a fulfillment. He lived out that life and that philosophy in his life. September 18th, 1961, while attempting to work out a peace agreement in Africa, his airplane went down and he died while he lived, living every moment and making every moment count. The prize laureate of India, 1931 Nobel Prize winner in literature, Rabindranath Tagore, wrote, "Death is not extinguishing the light. It is putting out the lamp because the dawn has come." Those early descendants of the Aztecs celebrated life even after death because they knew their loved ones lived on. Even though some perceived it to be the end, they knew it to be a continuum. Tagore agrees with him, saying, death is not extinguishing the light, it's putting out the lamp because the dawn has come. So what should we do in the face of death itself? How about living? What a concept. The master teacher 2,000 years ago told his listeners, I've come that they might have life, have it to the full, overflowing, or as it's often translated when people try to capture those immortal words, abundantly. I like to say, have life and live it up. That's why he said, I am way, I am truth, I am life. Wow, that sounds bold. Saying I am is not just to admit you exist, but it's to really grab onto all that you claim to be and to do. The teacher claimed not that he was on a path, but that he was the pathway. He was the plan. He was the divine design. Not to say that he was the only path, but he was his path. He also claimed on our behalf that he not only declared truth, but he was, by being alive, he was truth. And thus, by being alive, that he was life. The rabbi, Saul of Tarsus, some call him Paul by his Greek name, Paul the Apostle. He reminds his Roman leaders when he writes a big long letter to them, which is far too long for us to read today, but it was personal correspondence and it lives with great wisdom. He said, let this same mind be in you that was in the anointed, the teacher. In other words, the teacher is not only our great exception, but our great example. We can embrace life fully, declare that we're the very existence of life on this planet in this time-space continuum. We are path. We are truth. We are life. You know why? The only path that you'll ever walk is the one that only you can walk. The only truth you will ever know is that truth that you alone experience. You can't experience somebody else's truth. You can hear about it, you can empathize with it and say, that's wonderful. But the only real truth that you know is the truth that you know. The only life that you can live is the life that you are living. So right along with the great teacher, you can say, I am path. Try it. Let's say it. I am path. It's the same as the word way. Try this one. I am truth. I am truth. When you say I am, you say, that's me. That's me. I claim it. I am. It was the ancient name for the divine. Moses came up to a burning bush. I can't imagine what that was like. kicked off his shoes, and a voice came out. Now, this is the story. Did it really happen? I was not there. I'm only 77. But this is the story that they kept telling. Out of the fire came a voice that says, I am who I am. And we can say it too, because there's nobody quite like you or quite like me. And some people think that's probably a good thing. You know? So I want you to say with me, I am way, I am truth, I am life. Say it. I am way, I am truth, I am life. It's a good way to live. The great American Lebanese poet, real philosopher, Kahlil Gibran. Anybody ever read The Prophet? A few of you have. Fabulous. I can tell that you're probably over 40 if you've read it. He said, if you would indeed behold the spirit of death, open your heart wide unto the body of life. For life and death are one, even as the river and the sea are one. Death is very much a part of life, and therefore is not really death at all, just as both the river and the sea are part of the great flow of water in this world. Ernest Holmes, a divine science minister who authored the book The Science of Mind, and who went on to found religious science movement, he said, the universe must exist for the self-expression of God and the delight of God. You and I are born out of God, and we are born out of a divine urge that creates. God is the Spirit seeks. There's a pressure on everything to express life. The dog must bark. The cat must have kittens. The hen must lay eggs. The artist must paint, no matter how terrible it looks. The singer must sing. The dancer must dance. Everything must express life, he says. We are born to create, and we can't help it. Why is that? Because God, the great creator, is in us. And then he goes on to say a little later, we are born to be happy, to be abundantly supplied with every good thing, to have fun in living, to consciously unite with the divine power that is around us and within us, to grow and expand forever. That sounds very much like embracing life, even that part called death, and living life to the full right here, right now, the only moment we have. Garrison Keillor, that name ought to ring bells here, host of National Public Radio's Prairie Home Companion, my companion every Saturday when I know my brother in Oregon will be listening as well. He says, they say such nice things about people at their funerals that it makes me sad that I'm going to miss mine by just a few days. And so will we all, I suppose. Though maybe we get to linger along just long enough to hear all the good things. I'm just nervous that they won't say enough. Meanwhile, we can take advice from somebody who's just been declared a saint, but we knew she was all along, Mother Teresa. And she said, life is an opportunity. Benefit from it. Life is beauty. Admire it. Life is a dream. Realize it. Life is a challenge. Meet it. Life is a duty. Complete it. Life is a game. Play it. Life is a promise. Fulfill it. Life is sorrow. Overcome it. Life is a song. Sing it. Life is a struggle. Accept it. Life is a tragedy. Confront it. Life is an adventure. Dare it. Life is luck. Make it. Life is too precious. Do not destroy it. Life is life. Fight for it. And then Hunter Thompson, author of The Proud Highway, a saga of a desperate Southern gentleman. I cannot say that I have read anything but this quote from him, but it's good. Life should not be a journey to the grave with the intention of arriving safely in a pretty and well-preserved body, but rather to skid in broadside in a cloud of smoke, thoroughly used up, totally worn out, and loudly proclaiming, "Wow, what a ride." Yes. I like it. That's why I admire a woman by the name of Irma Bombeck. Anybody remember her? She was wild. She just commented on the everyday life and things that went on, and she would put that little twist to it. And here's what she said while living with breast cancer, which eventually took her home. She said, "When I stand before God at the end of my life, I would hope that I would not have a single bit of talent left and could say I used everything you gave me." So, if I could say anything to you, don't wait to celebrate or to let others celebrate your life after you've gone. I say start the party right now. Live as the master teacher recommends, abundantly. Now, none of you are old enough to remember Brim Coffee, but the slogan was, "Fill it to the rim with Brim." I'm saying, fill your life to the rim and then let it overflow. Live life, as the master teacher said, abundantly, wildly, exotically, crazily, thrillingly. And then when they celebrate you when you're gone, they'll have something to talk about. And that's the truth. Amen.